Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Now, you know me better than that, Leon. You know that I can actually operate OBS and not fuck shit up, unlike some other people out there.
I'm just used to the, let's say, less than stellar performance of other people.
Oh, you need to stop watching them.
I don't watch them. I haven't watched them because they're fucking morons.
Fair point, and we know other people who keep bringing them up, which is part of the issue.
So is that how we're introducing the movie we're watching? Is other people's fuck-ups?
Oh,
yes.
Isn't that rather accurate?
It is. It's so accurate.
Especially, okay. So, for those who may be unfamiliar, on this channel, when we do a movie review, I will watch the movie 3 times. Once just to watch it, another time to take notes, and another time to get ideas of scenes and screenshots to take. Who here wants to take a guess how many times I watched this one?
Once just to say you did it?
Do you have a guess, Leon?
I'd say 0.75 of one time.
No, when we played it in the server, I actually did pay attention for all except the credits. And the credits don't count. So yeah, Jay, you're right. Once. So for those who don't know where the image from the thumbnail came from, it is the... Oh, God, I put it in the description.
1 minute, 37 second mark.
Yeah, 1 minute, 37 seconds into the movie from when you press play, so including all the producer and studio intros before the movie actually starts. Including that run-up. Just over a minute and a half into the movie, and I think that's where it should have ended. Because, oh boy, does it go downhill from there.
Well,
I was gonna say, Jared, did you get to see my screenshot I took and edited for later on in the movie?
I did, and I was wondering if you intentionally put it backwards.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because
I titled it "Reverse" what the other movie was, just because.
Okay. So, ever since I started doing individual custom thumbnails for all the Kanar with Damar episodes, each one has been getting its own uniquely poignant file name. That way I know which one it's for, so if I ever want to reuse it or tweak it a little bit, I can immediately go to, hey, what were we talking about? Not last show, which was Sci-Fi Free-for-All 2. The show before that, where we did the review of the 2009 reboot, the predecessor to the movie we're talking about today, I just named it Trek 2009. Just very simple. But then we have other ones like Best of the Worst, Best Spies, Browncoats Unite, Is Dread Sci-Fi, Good Bad Heresy, Favorite Wolf, Take Your Pick, Let's Walk, Miles Must Suffer. That one was fun. Trek Money, Worst Character, Why You Love Trek. And then we get to one of the more entertaining ones we did, Size Matters. But when it came to the movies, it was quite simply KWD, Star Trek 6, Star Trek 7, Star Trek 8, Star Trek 9, Star Trek 10. Just the number increments of which movie it was. Until we get to today's. Which is quite bluntly Trek fucked.
Right.
You know, what are you going to do for the next one?
I haven't decided yet, and we have a good
2 weeks
two, maybe 3 weeks before I have to worry about that one. Because it does depend on the work schedule.
We need to put in proportion here how bad this movie is. When someone, you know who you are, didn't show up on Wednesday to actually come watch the movie, he was later on tasked with grabbing the screenshots, to which he replied with...
Hang on, let's go there. Let's read it off directly.
It can't share. What?
No, it doesn't like to share.
Say again?
It doesn't like to share Discord very much.
It's not sharing Discord.
So, as we have it right here, you have me messaging in our... let's just call it the green room. Me messaging and tagging Furball, saying, "For missing out on tonight, you get to do all the screenshots." Then Furball asking, "What is the movie I'm being forced to watch this week?" Now, Leon put in the actual title. I said, AKA...
Now it's working.
The Wrath of Khan, shit.0. And I think that scared him off. I think he realized back then, yeah, I'm going to find something else that's going on Saturday, so I don't have to be a part of this shit show. Now, I really wish, I so wish that the timing... I wish the timing worked and was better, because middle of the afternoon on Saturdays unfortunately doesn't work for the one, the only Undoomed, who I occasionally do DM on Twitter. And I asked him if he wanted to be a part of our reaction, our thoughts, our very loose review of this particular installment into the Star Trek franchise, and he said he would love to. It just depended on whether or not he was available.
So that's code for I'd rather shoot my brains out.
Oh no, he does enjoy giving shit against productions and production companies that screw with IPs. On a couple streams he's done on his own channel,
yeah.
He doesn't do them often. He has railed against what has been offered by Star Trek post Nemesis.
Oh yeah.
So I know he would be right there with us and really want to let loose and speak his mind about the expectations he had and how they completely, utterly failed them. We just haven't been able to get the schedule to work out to actually let him come on and join us and share in the commiseration.
Can I say the only good thing about this movie?
That it ended?
It ended?
No, wait. Besides that, the only good part of the actual movie, not the credits, Scotty standing up for what he believes in. That's about the only thing I can say is good about that movie.
Yeah, we do have to thank Simon Pegg for that one. Which is why I had more expectations from Beyond than I did for Into Darkness. Because as that production was being started and everything, it came out that Simon Pegg was going to be one of the lead writers for the third installment of this segment of Trek movies. And yeah, that didn't exactly go well. But let's just try to keep it focused to this segment in particular, because I will agree, that at the beginning, well, during Act 1, during the build-up and beginning of the movie, Kirk trying to strong-arm those pieces of technology onto the Enterprise, and Scotty doing what every chief engineer would do, and say, no, unless I know what's coming aboard my ship, I am not letting it aboard my ship. And him actually leveraging his resignation to prove his point, and then Kirk idiotically saying, yes, I do accept it. At least they showed one character of that core group to exercise and maintain their moral compass at some point in that movie.
A moral what and what now?
Yeah, imagine that. They actually had a character who had an appropriate moral compass, and they stuck with it.
Yeah, but Mickey Smith can't catch a break no matter what, whether it's Trek or who.
Poor dumb Mickey. which, as we were watching it, I even put that into the lobby as soon as he came up, because, he is actually a very good actor. He just has some bad luck with the characters that he ends up getting cast in.
And I love the fact that they still credit the one lieutenant for security as Cupcake on IMDb.
It is accurate.
It is, and let's be honest, that's how most people know him. That was arguably the most defining bit about his character. That not only did Kirk call him that, but later on, he tried to use it to throw it back at him, and it didn't quite work.
But just, let's play a game here. What character, apart from McCoy, actually showed that he had any kind of, character? That he wasn't just something that, oh, we're going to shoehorn this person in here because we think this will actually work. It doesn't really matter if it's something that's important to the character itself. It doesn't matter if it's something that's consistent with the character throughout the story. We're just going to, shove them in there.
I don't know. Would you really consider Carol Marcus being shoved in there, or vice versa?
No.
Because I will say that the only other thing that I would consider a bright spot in this movie would be the inclusion of her character, especially because of the actress that played her.
You just like the underwear scene, Jared.
No. While that was nice, I do agree it was unnecessary for the story. It has already been portrayed enough in that series that Kirk was more of a womanizer than he actually was in the original series and the rest of the TOS era crew offerings. So while damn did she look good in that scene, I see that scene as being excessive.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes where it's just they had to shoehorn the womanizer of Kirk for no other reason than to do it. So which character actually had the better character portrayal besides Bones? Overall, is that kind of what we're going with?
Yeah, there's
or
that
rather,
too.
which character showed that they had a character or they were a character? And not just something that we're going to put this name here. It doesn't really matter who it is.
Scotty.
I was going to say, I go back to Scotty with him standing up to that. And then the fact that he's he resigned his commission, out drinking, and he still goes out and does what Kirk asked because Kirk apologized. That's a moral character trait there.
And he did kind of have a crisis, a mini crisis, a bit of conflict with it after after they disconnected the communication when he was there. It's like, no, wait, there was that bit of hesitation, and then he still did it, which, yeah, a bit of it was plot contrivance because they needed some way to get an appropriate resolution to the do we want to call it Skydive 2.0?
Yeah.
Because they did the skydive onto the platform in the first one. Well, that was really cool. We should do something like that again. Hey, let's have Cumberbitch and Pine Tree do a similar thing, but through a debris field onto the enemy ship. Well, how are they going to get inside? Well, we need to have someone open an airlock door on that other ship. Well, how are we going to get a sympathetic character onto that ship that would be able to? We're going to have Scotty resign just so he's not on the ship to give us a means to get him on there. Right. Because
it would have been... Go on.
It could have worked, except for I see it having failed before he even got on the ship. Because, so, in that conversation, Kirk gave him some coordinates. Scotty got his shuttlecraft and went to those coordinates, which was in orbit of Jupiter, and found an enclosed space dock. And he's in a position perched looking down at the opening and sees a whole convoy of other shuttlecrafts coming in. No one's going to notice the addition of an additional shuttlecraft right as they're entering the area from a position that's not with the rest of them. Right.
They don't have codes or anything like that that they actually have to verify. Why would they? It's not like it's top secret or anything like that.
Or being done by the uber secret arm of Starfleet intelligence known as Section 31. Which...
Section 47.
Now, here's what I found interesting. They didn't even try to hide the existence of Section 31 in this movie. The fucking Admiral outright came and admitted to it, whereas every other inclination, every other appearance pre-discovery of Section 31, they were rumors. They were never confirmed. They were never sanctioned. The closest they ever got to someone in Starfleet actually confirming the existence of Section 31 was Admiral Ross. During the mission with Bashir to the Romulan homeworld. And that's how it should have stayed. When you have that sort of clandestine body, you don't fucking parade it to someone that you don't already have sworn in.
I just feel, though, like the whole thing with Section 31 has become one of those... It's like the... how was it? A Tal Shiar. We're just going to throw it in here because it seems good. It isn't something that they mean anything anymore. It's not something that it's got any weight behind it. It's just, oh, it's a top secret organization that fucking everyone knows about.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, I would compare the Tal Shiar, or even the Obsidian Order, to the Stasi in East Germany. Where they were a thing, they were confirmed after the fact, but it was whispers. It was something that the mere mention of their name carried with it the threat of ruin, or you just outright disappearing. Once the Trek writers stopped treating those organizations in that fashion, everything else ended up falling off the rails too.
Yeah, because it's something that they actually did manage to do somewhat well still was the Obsidian Order, really. In that they weren't too overt. People knew about them, but they didn't know enough to actually know what the fuck they were doing. With the Tal Shiar, you mention anything or, you look sideways at someone, and you're gone. The Obsidian Order, oh, you won't be gone. You'll just be living in fear, knowing that someone of them knows what you know. And you won't dare to actually say anything, because if you try to say anything, that's not just you, that's your family, and that's everyone close to you, just in case, and just to prove a point.
Yeah, at the same time, the Cardassians were a bit more cutthroat amongst themselves than they were initially led on, or even still often led on, even at the point we're at right now in Season 4 of DS9. And we had the episode recently where Zial and Garrick were getting close, and Kira did not take kindly to that. And there was... let's call it what it was. It was a date. It was a date in a holosuite that was a Cardassian thermal spa. And Garrick goes in there, and he has a disruptor on him because he legitimately thinks she might be out to get me to curry favor and get her way back to where she belongs with our people. And she threw a curveball to him. And this is where I will continue to attest that Deep Space Nine is the best written and best produced overall series from Star Trek, because you have moments like Zial pointing out to Garrick that what would it serve for me to kill you? What would it do? I'm an outcast. I can't be... I won't be accepted on Bajor. I won't be accepted on Cardassia. So I'm stuck here. You're an outcast. You're exiled from Cardassia. And because you're a Cardassian, you're not really welcome anywhere else. And a number of people know you were in the Obsidian Order, which makes your list of places to go even less. So we could either completely ignore each other exists, or we could actually find some way, and who knows, we might actually enjoy each other's company. And that coming from Zial, who was from one of the more tragic backstories of a side character that was intended to be a one-off character. But because of the fan reaction to her, she ended up becoming a recurring character. Until Damar pulled a Damar.
Yeah. Which I'm going to say that maybe it's better that he did that than her getting ruined. Just putting that out there. Because sadly, one of the things that happens very often, not as much in DS9, but very often in series overall, is that characters they outlive their welcome, and then they come up with some completely fucking bonkers method of getting rid of them, after people have started loathing them instead.
Shut up, Wesley.
That one should
Wrong,
have been
wrong universe there.
Oh, I bet with all the fucking characters that are recurring in the universes, he's going to show up in the fucking Kelvin timeline too. And when he does, I hope he gets shoved out a fucking airlock.
You know what? Thinking back to how STP treated Icheb, that should not have been Icheb. That should have been Wesley.
I'd be fine with that.
And then you would have had more of a character worth getting a reaction out of people from. My main reaction is, why'd you pick him?
It's just gratuitous violence.
A lot of it was. And I saw an article recently that it was on StarTrek.com of someone saying that, oh, the new people who are writing Trek, they love Trek. They want Trek to be what it used to be. Really? Really? They want to keep the spirit of Trek and yet not actually uphold to the spirit of the franchise to date. Because even with the Dominion War arc that was going on in DS9, you still had the adherence to the Federation being the Federation and bending, but not breaking. And now, both of the latest series that are down the line are borderline, if not outright, dystopias. That's not what Trek is about.
Interesting. There's a Doohan in the Star Trek Into Darkness. He is the transport officer, and he is in fact the son of James.
Yeah, he is the one who actually has picked up a lot of the roles in fan films that are homages to his father. Which I'm curious about the psychology behind that. How much of it he's doing because of a loyalty to the franchise and a love for his father, and how much of it is simple paycheck.
I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
I like, though, how much we like that movie, the Into Sharpness one. We like it so much that we're talking about DS9 instead because it's so much better.
Well, and that's the thing. It's a comparison in things. One of the things that actually struck me on Wednesday when we were watching it, how much of the dialogue was regurgitated from The Wrath of Khan and Space Seed.
Yeah.
Like,
and how little value it had.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I'm going to see if I can actually get it on screen here. But there is a moment where... Come on, let's see if we can find... No. Okay. So, there's the percent. So, here we have Kirk instead of Spock this time because, hey, new universe, new timeline, let's switch the roles. We have Kirk inside of the warp core at where the armature linkage for the power flow and conversion is supposed to be taking place. What's missing? what key component of established tech is not visible within this apparatus?
Warp core?
No. This is inside the warp core.
The dilithium.
Yeah. Where's the dilithium crystal that's supposed to be the focusing of the reaction?
Fuck knows.
So, point one there. Now, in this scene here, does anyone remember which direction Kirk stomps on the lower armature to try to get it back in place?
Downwards.
Straight down.
Yeah, it's straight down on the part that is tilted towards him.
Jared,
Yes,
your screen sharing is dimmed, kinda.
on that side. Yeah. Let's go ahead and...
no.
Doot.
It works, it's just harder to see.
Let's do that. There we go. Now the audience can see it a little bit better.
Yes.
So, no dilithium crystal unless that's what's below, in the lower part of the housing there. And yeah, he was stomping down on the thing instead of, oh, I don't know, kick it to the side to get it to line up and drop it back in place.
Or, as you have quite a lot of handles, etc. on it, sit down and pull the fucker towards you.
Or go to the other side and do it.
Yeah. It's just... Okay, to begin with, I don't understand the new fucking warp cores. I don't understand anything of what they want to accomplish with them. Mostly because, from the lore that I remember, this ain't how the fucking thing works.
Well, to be fair, we've only gotten very rudimentary explanations of it through the technobabble. What I will give the Kelvin timeline a sliver of credit for, and I'm pretty sure I even said this a couple weeks ago, the way they upscaled the sizes of the ships and the technology makes more sense compared to what we saw in TOS, TNG, and the classic, more true to form editions of Star Trek. But miniaturization of technology is a thing. So if you're getting pure energy conversion and no significant energy loss in your power core, which is what you're supposed to get from a warp core using matter, antimatter annihilations as your energy source, miniaturization shouldn't be that much of a problem. But would upscaling it to this point have really need to be a thing? Because just the inner part of that warp core, where the fuck was that on the ship? It's you know what? Discovery is made from Bad Reboot. Sorry, Secret Hideout. The offshoot of Bad Robot. Fuck you, Kurtzman. I know where Discovery got the idea now for that horrendously oversized open air, open space turbolift area that was an abomination in season 3 of Discovery.
I still haven't watched all that yet.
Oh, you're not missing much. And it was that right there. It was that view of the inside of the warp core of the Enterprise in the Kelvin timeline.
Well, even then, okay, looking at this, do we agree that the Kelvin timeline is the same timeline as Enterprise? I'd say it's close enough, at least.
It is the closest by far. I do see Star Trek Enterprise as being in its own timeline as a result of the events of the First Contact movie. I do go with that. And at first, I was on board with the whole Discovery and Picard being an offshoot of that, with the Kelvin timeline being an alternate timeline of that alternate timeline. I'm willing to put Discovery, Picard, and the JJ verse all on the same timeline. How it relates to Enterprise, I don't know anymore. Because Enterprise, the technology scale was more in line with what we got in later Prime timeline editions. So that's where I think we're probably looking at a hybrid where you have the Prime timeline, which then got the offshoot that is Star Trek Enterprise as a result of First Contact. Then the Kelvin timeline and everything is an alternate of that timeline.
Yeah, because with that, this is the warp core on the NX-01. This came before the whole thing with the Kelvin timeline and the offshoot, etc., etc. This is something more close to what I can actually see them having as, the original ones or the original warp cores. If they aren't refined, it's essentially just a piece of industrial machinery.
Yeah.
It's actually like a steam locomotive. And I don't know where they get in that case from that to a brewery or a huge fucking chamber with just this little itty bitty aperture right in the middle. There's something there that doesn't really jive.
Yeah, and when you compare this to what we see even in TOS and the TOS era movies, this here is more of what you would expect for an older engine room. More crude, less efficient warp coils, so the speed limitations are going to be there. It makes sense for this to possibly be a stepping stone towards the Prime timeline. However, there are other things that they had in the show that you could tell were a direct result of First Contact, because things didn't match up with this and with the established beta canon of the history prior to the original show. Like the use of photon torpedoes, the invention of phasers. It was in TNG, it was established that during and in TOS, it was established that the warfare that the Romulans and just Earth, not even the Federation, because this was pre-Federation, the Romulan Earth War was not fought with phasers or photon torpedoes or any of those advancements. Those came into place between that war, that conflict, and the 4 Years' War with the Klingons, which took place shortly prior to TOS. So how we go from those changes in technology are easily explained by this engine room we're seeing right here being part of an alternate timeline stemming from the Borg incursion that almost stopped First Contact. I know. They even have a reference to that in the show.
Yeah, that's something where, looking at this here, everything that you see in Star Trek Enterprise it's a more advanced version of what we have today, but it's not to the point of just making it minimal or getting more and more technologically advanced that you see in TOS, etc. It's a good first step, including shit like this. Just, you have a platform that you have to climb up on just to get to the control panel. It's just put up, well, Rather, it's raised above the fucking floor here. And I don't know if many of these are cooling pipes or if they're fuel pipes or whatever the fuck they are. But it's something that shows, okay, we have an idea. We have an engine. We're going to shove it in here. We're going to make it fit. And then you can try it out so we can make new ones that are better. As in, the way that a lot of this shit actually works.
Yeah, because even in this, they had that thought of modularity and upgradability. Because when you look at more of the expanded information from the people who did the set design and everything, the way the NX-01 was designed was so in a dry dock they can open up the rear hatch, literally remove that entire warp core assembly, and replace it with a new one as they needed.
Yeah, and it works. The NX-01, for everything and being so primitive by modern Trek standards,
As it should be.
It's a really good ship. They did it right. They didn't have all the technology that they have in modern Trek, but they still did it right. And that's something where we see that, well, that's really fun, well, really tiny, but we see what they're doing here. We can see the ideas. We can see where they wanted to go. And they had the right idea. Just looking at something like, say, the bridge here. It's a rather basic bridge. I don't know how well you can see it there, though, but I'm going to guess well enough.
Yeah.
Well, we have shit here like, okay, what could you expect? This is something that I could see this as being a direct descendant of what we have today. You have the screens and monitors and shit like that. You have the way that everything is set up just to give the captain a good overlook while not actually being in the way of it.
Oh, yeah. Like when you look at the unclassified images from the control room of an American submarine right now, it's the layout is different, but the fact that you have all that information right there at your displays, that's not far off.
Let's actually see here if we can. Oh, this is not helpful.
Yeah, you got some old ones in there. You want to look at Virginia class submarines?
Maybe not Coom either. I can't.
No. If you're going to be cooming, you need to go to a different streaming service.
Or just wait until Veterans Talk Weekly.
Ah, that
Is
too.
this it? This kind of works, I just want slightly larger. Is this accurate enough?
Yeah, that's the basic layout of what they're designing it to be, and it's not even in the same spot as it used to be in the older ships. So everything on the older ships, like mine and Tex and Nikki's, were all up on the upper deck or upper level of the forward compartment.
Yeah, right by the sail.
Yeah, because of having to have the periscopes. Now you have everything in either middle deck or second level. I forget what the exact layouts of the Virginias are, if they're 3 or 4 deck forward compartment, but
yeah, right there, that first one. Yeah, and then there's your helms and plane, and it's all glass display now for a lot of the stations. So it really does, that lineage is there to where you have the U.S. Navy submarine fleet, and not much different than what we see in most of the established Trek that people actually enjoy.
Yeah, because looking at it, oh, this is actually good. It's from the Barracuda, but close enough. Well, here is something where you can see the lineage. You can see where it comes from. you can see why it is the way that it is. And then let's look at let's go. Jesus fucking Christ, this is confusing.
Second row all the way left is going to be your best bet.
So yeah, open in new tab. Oh Jesus!
Oh, fuck
Christ.
that.
Is this? Yes, this is good enough. Good. It's a playset, so close enough. But yeah, looking at it here, we have. I want one more angle. No. That'll be good enough. Now we're looking at it here. Once it loads, we have all this shit here, and I can kind of understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, what role, or rather what use, is the captain here? The captain, as it is, only has really one thing that he can do. He can look out the window, he can give orders, which I don't see why they have a huge actual window to the bridge, but that's just me. Whereas if you look at this, you have the captain. He can see everything here, actually keep contact with his crew clearly. Everyone here, maybe not so much the ones behind him.
Well, and back there, that's just a situation room. That's like plot. That's
Yeah,
that's a meeting area.
That would be like navigation, quartermaster plot, whatever you want to call it back there. If we were to design this based on a submarine.
Yeah, whereas here, the captain can, through an easy glance, see what the fuck is going on the entire bridge, without being overbearing. Here, the captain is just sitting back. He can't see shit what happens behind him. He can barely see what happens here, or in front of him, just because of the way that it's laid out. And then looking at something like the
And
yeah.
yes, Sean Carroll, that's right. That really was the final battle was a submarine battle. And Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, it was actually intended to be. And because when you look at it, ultimately, when you start taking damage, that's the type of warfare that you're going to be dealing with in that environment. It is going to be a 3D space that you have to deal with. And especially with the way the weaponry is, that's most analogous to it. And you get a bit more advancement on TNG and later, to where they're not losing the view screen or the sensors as much, which, hey, over time, a bit more reliability, being a bit more robust, makes sense. But yeah, like, even in this one, from the TOS era, Constitution class bridge, the only spot that the captain can't see what's going on at a glance is communication, which doesn't really need.
As I recall, though, doesn't the captain's chair actually swivel?
It does.
Yes, it's just me. Because I don't recall it ever swiveling in the movies here.
I think
Not
it
often.
did.
It did,
not
but they
often.
didn't use it often.
Because I think when Pike was still captain in the first one, Kirk was sitting in the chair, kind of swiveling it back and forth before he was told to get out of the chair.
Yeah, I might have just pushed that out of my memory because...
Well, it's the first one, I
reasons.
understand.
But even looking at something like this here we have the Enterprise, whichever one of
The D. That is the Generations upgrade to the bridge. So this would be like lead into DS9 and because see where those panels are. So see where the panels are on the far wall.
These ones or
Those ones. Yep, those walls were actually opened up, and they added tactical and communication stations to those for the Generations movie. If you go back to the newest one, the cartoon one that you had of the D, that one. See those extra stations on the side there?
yeah.
That was the upgrade with the addition of the steps there in the middle.
I just recall there being something more between the seats.
No. What they used to have, the early TNG, they used to have additional bench seats with no back on the other sides of the consoles on those two other seats. So, like, you have that's after one of the upgrades. But so with the swivel station, like what's next to where Riker and Troy would sit on either side of the captain, there used to be an additional bench seat there with no back.
Yeah, it might be that I'm remembering. Yeah, even then, looking at something like this, sure, you have tactical, you have engineering, you have science, you have all that shit. But all the quote unquote important stuff that you actually need to have a quick look at is still here. All those things that are still the most important things to you are still here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need something else here, well, you have a first officer and you have a counselor. Or whoever the fuck
Mission
decides to sit
specialist.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
So you still have all the information you need as a captain. Looking at this one, it's the same thing. Sure, you might not be able to see anything behind you, but you don't need it. You have everything that you need here. Looking at this, it's the same idea. And sure, you might need comms, but he just fucking swirls around anyway. And same one there. But in this, he has everything here that he needs to keep an eye on, while at the same time trying to keep an eye on what happens outside a window. That shouldn't really matter because it's space. If you're 30,000 kilometers away from something, you won't see it that easily.
Yeah, and that's where prior to that generation of design where they put an actual window with like a HUD overlay on it, before going to that, where it was an actual screen, they could use the sensor suites from anywhere on the ship to display whatever type of information in whatever spectrum they wanted on the display.
Yeah, and it works. You don't need a giant fuck of window into the bridge. Just put, bulkheads in front of it. Shove something in front of it, whatever the shit, so you don't have it open and exposed, because no matter what, that glass won't be harder than 3 or 4 bulkheads and just burying the control room inside the ship.
But didn't someone get the molecular formula for transparent aluminum back in the 80s? Oh wait, wrong timeline.
Yeah, you never know with that shit. When they went back to, what was it? Nazi Germany?
Oh god.
In whatever timeline that was.
For being a sci-fi show, one of the things that, especially later on in life and watching it, they actually did a lot of time travel throughout Trek. Like an obscene amount for what's supposed to be more of the hard sci-fi bastions.
which is kind of entertaining though, considering how many times have they gone back to China in the 50s and 60s and everything happening there.
Oh, but
Especially,
then they would have to admit that they knew about what was going on.
yeah, that would be a shame, wouldn't it? Instead of just bashing the Nazis all the time.
Wow.
I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm just saying you don't just bash one of the ones that are actually guilty of it. Bash fucking everyone, especially the people who killed 100 million people and all that.
And still are.
Yes.
Which bridge was that? Is that the Hathaway?
This is a battle bridge.
Oh, the Battle Bridge. Okay. Yeah, the set that they redressed for a number of things.
Yeah.
If it works, it works.
Well, it was the set used for the Enterprise A bridge at one point, the Hathaway, and pretty much any other additional Starfleet ships. That's generally the one they changed up.
I was gonna say, wasn't it also the one they used for the Enterprise C?
I believe so.
Maybe.
Yeah. But even then, you have your uber critical stuff right there in front of the captain, and then you have everything else either within relative ease communication or ease of sight. And I do agree, Burns. Voyager did put that stuff on its head, but Voyager, admittedly, the ship was a design departure into a different direction, partly because of what they've established in canon and lore with the whole damage to subspace from frequent warp travel in certain areas, and also the mission profile that Voyager was actually supposed to fulfill but never actually did.
What, Nikki?
I can't tell if that's a wave or a raised hand.
Exactly. So I'll share with everybody my my 5-second creation that I made.
Oh, this is... And, again, how much of the script from The Wrath of Khan did they just rewrite to put into this movie? And you know what? I'm not surprised, because it was fucking J.J. Abrams and Kurtzman. They did the exact same thing with fucking Star Wars once they got it.
Yep. I mean, everybody knows New Hope and Force Awakens are all the same thing. At least when Lucas rewrote A New Hope as the Phantom Menace, he at least tried to gussy it up as a slightly different storyline.
There were enough changes that it wasn't as obvious. It only became obvious if you actually did a more critical review of the story itself. Mm-hmm. Did you see the parallels between Phantom Menace and A New Hope? But Force Awakens? Like, at first it's like, hey, yeah, great. Wait a minute, this looks familiar. Hey, great, wait a minute, this is looking familiar. Hey, wait, this is progressing way too fucking familiar.
I like the part, though, where Rey had a traumatic experience that brought on her journey. Oh, wait. That was Luke. I'm sorry.
I don't know. That bread she made, that was pretty traumatic looking.
But so is she.
You know, I would say that it was rather traumatic milking that fucking thing in the second movie and then drinking that... Oh, no, wait, that was Luke, too.
He has a thing for blue milk, man. What can you say?
That was blue milk. That was green milk.
Shh. Most of the people here didn't watch that movie.
Oh, blue, green, blue.
By the way, You can buy blue and green milk at Disney's Galaxy's Edge,
Oh, for fuck's
both at
sake.
Disney World and Disneyland.
I can get that just by letting my milk sit out.
I mean, hell, you can get blue milk at the store. It's called skim milk. Ever
I
noticed,
find it
Jared, have you ever noticed, Jared, that it does have kind of a bluish tint to it?
I remember my mom getting skim milk for herself growing up. Other than that, no, not my thing.
But here's something though. Who or other were there any sacrifices made in the Wrath of Khan, let's say, to Electric Boogaloo?
Uh,
Scotty's sacrificing the guy in the cargo bay.
Didn't really matter.
yeah. The only thing that actually held any weight for any amount of time was Scotty's resignation.
That still ended up being one of those slightly wonky MacGuffins. He
Yeah.
had to do that in order to get to where he needed to be in the rest of the movie. There was no real sacrifice. I think almost that we need to call movies like these Jesus movies. Because there's no fucking real sacrifice to be made. I'm going to sacrifice you to myself so that I can feel better, but you don't really die. So therefore, it's all null and void. Because with this, okay, Kirk died. Big fucking whoop. He came back right away because, oh, the Tribble just had to come alive then. He just had to try Khan's fucking blood on a dead Tribble for reasons.
Now, it would have been interesting. That could have easily been explained away if, after getting the briefing about Harrison, aka Khan, they showed Bones doing some research onto a medical bit, and then you have fucking Mickey's daughter there, and the reports and the case study of her miraculous turnaround. Have some nod to that to give Bones the reason for doing what he was with Khan's blood in the Tribble.
It's a deleted scene.
It probably was.
Or
But
even
that
show
pisses me off more, which means that they thought about it. They knew they needed to draw that connection somehow, but then in the editing room said, "Yeah, fuck it, we can get rid of it. People will know."
People will infer.
But even then, okay, he took Khan's blood, I'm just going to assume, straight from Khan, and just shoved it into fucking Kirk. What about the blood group? What about potential diseases? What if it's actually not something that works with humans?
Well, that's just it. He did say he took Khan's blood and synthesized something for her. So he took into the account of potential issues.
But that doesn't work in that case because then he's essentially synthesized a panacea. He has synthesized an anti-death drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it had been something where it was shown that, okay, Khan's blood is, among other things, a strong anti-reagent against radiation poisoning. Okay, sure. I can kind of somewhat buy that. Just shove his body into cryostasis. Freeze the fucker down until the point where they can do something about it. Just say that they did that to preserve his body on the way home. By the time they got home, they essentially did what they did in TNG, just thawed him up, and then jabbed him with a fucking syringe or hyperspray, whatever the fuck. Something like that, not just, oh, yeah, he's alive now, because blood, or because something synthesized. That's just, It's so completely and utterly fucking retarded.
You mean like McCoy's like, oh, quit being so melodramatic. You're only dead for a little bit.
Yeah. But it means that nothing that happened there had any weight.
Yep.
He or his sacrifice did not hold any weight. His sacrifice meant nothing. No matter who it was, anyone could have done it. Fucking Porthos could have done it if they found him. It's just something where that whole sequence, just kill him off. Let him die. Find some other way, if you want to bring him back, to bring him back later. In the next movie, or whatever the shit. But don't just do it like, oh yeah, he sacrificed himself. He's such a hero. And here we see Spock, and he's finally embracing his more human side with emotions. Lol, no, I'm alive. It didn't really matter. Fuck you. Piss off.
That was another thing. Why the departure? Well, you know what? No. Thinking about it, I know where they pulled the inspiration from for the more emotional Spock. When you actually look at Spock through the original series, through the actual TV show, he did have his moments of being more human. Granted, a few of those times were because he was under the influence of another fucking being that was, oh, hey, there's this part of you. You don't use this part of you that often. Poke. Poke. What does this do? Poke. Poke. Like when there was the episode where Spock turned into a space hippie.
I forgot about that one.
There might be reasons.
Yeah, TOS had a lot of interesting episodes like that, but it wasn't ever Spock acting that way because Spock wanted to. It was always he was under the influence and he's not acting like himself, which was their clue that, hey, something's not right here. Something up.
The Spock in these movies so far has been... He's been like a fucking yo-yo. He's been up and down and just does not actually seem to have a progression of how he feels. It's more, oh, how should he feel in this scene?
Oh, he's just
And
outright
in this
bipolar.
one.
Let's just call it what it is.
No, he's not even bipolar. He's got fucking borderline personality disorder.
I don't know about that, but there's definitely a manicness to it that's questionable.
I was looking at him, you don't have a growth in the movies with Spock. From the last movie, which I'm going to assume that the last movie took place a couple of months ago, movie time-wise. It seems like it, at least.
Yeah, you're looking at less than a year between movies.
Yeah, so from that, he shouldn't be the overly Vulcan Spock in the beginning that he actually was, with everything like that. And then go all soft and mushy and all like that. And then be logical, and then soft and mushy again, just like that. There's no reason for him to, apart from, lazy writers.
He's suffering through the Ponfar, probably.
But
Uhura was cock-blocking him, with Kirk for a while.
We've seen the Vulcan Ponfar before, and even that don't even fucking explain it.
Yeah, but this could be the Kelvin Ponfar, so it could be different.
Oh dear Lord. But what they should have done is they should have taken him in this movie where he has embraced his more human side. And then said, they should have done something so that he was forced into a more Vulcan mindset. Something happened. Either his emotions got him scolded somehow, or whatever the shit. Maybe someone's tried to say anything or tries to say something to him from the surviving Vulcans. regardless, he should have been more emotional or more open with his emotions to begin with, and then lose that. He should have been, well, nice to begin with. Something happens, say something where he's suspecting Kirk and Uhura of, say, fibbling around behind his back. So he turns more Vulcan, he turns more logical. And then nearer to the end, he realizes what's been actually going on. And then he starts slowly going back to actually being more embracing of his human side again. Not entirely human, but seeing that as part of himself as well.
A bit more balance is what we're looking for.
Yeah, because right now, he's just all over the fucking place. And something like Kirk there, okay, it's less than a year from him actually getting his command, and he's getting scolded because, oh, he's been all over the place and he doesn't follow the rules and he isn't doing this, isn't doing that. He's just trying to hide from these things. Well, how the fuck do we know? We haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
And
you're just telling us.
Yeah, and that kind of exposition just with the beginning of the movie too. Why in the shit were they at the bottom of the ocean? Why not let, the main ship stay in orbit and then take the space boat down, hide it somewhere, and keep that hidden while at least being close enough to be able to get Spock out?
You were just looking for an excuse to do that, weren't you?
Yes. Well, it's one of those things where, why not do that? You have a fucking spaceship. It's a huge fucking spaceship. You don't have to take it down to the planet. There's nothing keeping you from staying up in the atmosphere. And why do you have to park your fucking spaceboat on that side of the volcano? Park on the other side, where there's no fucking people.
See,
nothing there works.
Well, and to really expound on that, I would say that they set that up for failure from the beginning, from even just the first movie, because that whole thing of, oh, graduate in 4 years, I'll do it in 3, which kind of makes you wonder, what classes did he skip out on to cut off that year that just might be biting him in the ass now?
The same as Riker. Every fucking class for keeping it in your pants.
Even Riker had his limits.
What were they?
That's because Riker had the holodeck to use when he really needed to let out some stress.
Exactly. And now, I'm not saying that Riker's perfect. I'm not saying that there weren't issues with Riker either. Because, well, there's a reason why you gotta clean out that trap on the holodeck as frequently as they do.
Minuet, anyone?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is,
He could be professional.
Yeah, he could still be professional. He could still recognize the limits. And even when he crossed the limits and it was backfiring for who he was with, like with, oh god, what was the name of that species? The one that he had the problems with the pronouns. But no, we've never had this sort of gender representation on Trek before. Watch TNG, you fucking assholes. Where the entire species was non-binary, and yet there was a biological change in evolution taking place where there were members of their society that quietly identified as a particular gender, and Riker happened to find and work with one. The character's name was Soren.
I take it that was kind of foreshadowing after how they give Riker.
Maybe. But I find it funny how they reuse that character's name later for a dickhead. Granted, a dickhead with vaguely believable and acceptable motivations.
Here's actually something, and this is a giant fucking pet peeve for me. Why is it in Star Trek or in sci-fi in general that you don't have two people with the same name?
What do you mean?
I mean that, okay, you look at, let's just take a state in America. How many people do you have that have the same name? Say, John Smith.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, but in fucking sci-fi, you don't have an issue of, oh yeah, we're looking for this guy. His name is Sarona. Which one of them do you mean? What? We have 15 of them. Do you have a last name? You never have those kinds of issues.
I think
I can understand.
I think part of that might be sample size.
But at the same time, with all the fucking Klingons and all the Vulcans and shit like that.
Yeah, now those ones, it should be, well...
Yeah, because that's always vexed me with the whole... We've met a good few of the different species, etc. Why the fuck do all of them have different names? Completely different. I can understand it if it's something where your name is based on, say, the day of your birth, and something like what fucking phase the moon is, etc., etc. Something where your name would actually be unique. Well, in that case, you go to something like, now what's that fucking name? The New Zealand name. Tell motherfucker what something.
Itaro.
It's the long fucking one.
Oh, no.
The beginning of Lone Ranger. Let me see here. Okay. Yeah, if you can say this, I'm slightly impressed. There you have it.
Oh, yeah, fuck no.
No, but if you have something like that, okay, I can understand it. Or something like Lilu in Fifth Element. Because that's a long fucking name, and she's one of a kind. Literally one of a kind. If you don't count her daughters, but I'd say that's more cloning. Well, it's one of those things where you have so many of these characters, you have so many members of this species, even from the same regions. Why the shit do they all have different names? If you wanted realistic, you'd say, okay, I want to meet Sarek.
Which one?
Which one? Unless you have something where it's someone who's so bloody well known. Like if you say, I want to meet Picasso, you know who the fuck that was. Otherwise, no, you're not going to have a fucking clue.
Yeah, it... Well, it's kind of like, even, like the whole thing with Dax. You have the lineage of the symbiote taking over the last name. So, oh, hey, here's Dax. Wait a minute, you don't look like the Dax I remember. I mean, with how that's handled, it kind of... You know what? Thinking about it, I think I know the only plausible explanation for why it happens that way. Sample size. We are seeing such a small number of the population that they never thought to factor something like that in.
Oh, just because it's actually easier to keep track of characters if they all have different names.
That too.
Oh,
It
Jared.
might be that.
Oh, what you find this time?
Weibo has updated her Twitter profile to include her pronouns.
Oh, for fuck's sake, what did she choose?
Her pronouns are Your Majesty or Royal Highness. Please respect them.
You know what? That could be interesting to see just how seriously she takes it.
Oh, she
Giggity.
also... you say that. She also lists the size of her D in here, too.
Oh, wait, the one that a viewer sent her that she was supposed to sign and send back or some shit like that?
No. So her profile, bar certified online silly person. Dick size, 90.001 feet. Pronouns Your Majesty / Royal Highness.
Alrighty then.
It's Weibo. What do you expect?
No, and that's exactly it. When you know what, throw a link to her channel and stuff, because I'm willing to bet there are some people out there who don't know who we're talking about.
I'm kind of surprised that someone didn't play an audio clip of, because the D was surprisingly large.
Oh no, I can't do that now. That's just too on the nose.
Yeah, you gotta
That's called a mushroom tattoo.
There's her YouTube channel. Although I do like the her not her profile picture, but the other one,
the banner.
the banner picture on Twitter. There's her Twitter account on the live chat there. It's her firing an AR-15 style weapon.
Ah.
That reminds me, I have to find that one now.
Let's try to do this without stabbing myself. This should be rather telling about this show, this movie in particular as well. I decided, since we were going to be talking about it, I would keep my hands busy by starting to take the upholstery cover off of the seat for the motorcycle while doing it. Because, yeah, why not? I finally got all the parts in, so after tomorrow, so tomorrow morning I do have a little bit of work to do, but then after, nice. Afterwards, I'm going to be finishing tinkering with the machine all day. And
Fairly accurate.
I don't see the problem.
I like this one too, because it's not wrong. The one fucking AK variant. It's an M16.
What is the difference between an M16 and an AK-47 anyways?
Apart from caliber, really how
No.
it works.
No. Apart from everything?
Yeah. However, if it was possible to get this AK-47 at an AK-47 price, or surplus price rather, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all.
All right.
Or this
Jared,
one. And then still didn't get two of these.
So, I know you're familiar with the ranting monkey as well, Jared, and his political affiliations, or his leanings, anyways.
Uh, actually, can't say that I remember for sure.
Oh well, when you see the avatar for his thing, you might remember.
Oh, yeah. So I take it you're finding some interesting things to start talking about for the show after this.
No, I just bored with the movie, so there are more interesting things on the internet than that.
You
Speaking
don't
of,
say.
is there in Star Trek still something where monetary means are exchanged for sexual favors, so to speak?
Yeah, look at the holosuites.
Yeah, but as in with real people.
Well, Data's fully functional.
Dig dig.
TNG actually addressed that in a way, kinda. Remember when Ro went undercover with the Maquis?
I think so.
One of her meetings to give a status report to Picard, they were supposedly negotiating a price.
Yeah, that one I remember. But with Star Trek in the way that things work there, you don't know if that's something for actual sexual favors or if it's something for Umox. Which
Boy.
to the Ferengi that is sexual, but
Yeah.
to everyone else.
Well, and that's the thing is you kind of got to go with the standard that the person requesting it would have. So Umox definitely is a sexual thing. Now, granted, it's closer to like what you would the treatment you would get in the champagne room of most adult establishments, but that doesn't mean it's not sexual.
Yeah, because this is something where I don't know if you two will actually try to censor this here, but it's the difference between, say, a high class geisha and a prostitute.
Wait, you mean there's a difference?
Well, if it's a high class geisha, you won't really have enough money for it. But it's one of those things where a geisha is a companion, so to speak, not Firefly companion, a companion.
Actually, where do you think Firefly got it from?
I know, and that's something where, with those geishas, etc., there's something there where she is she's quote unquote a lady when it comes to this. It's not something for sexual favors, it's something as a status symbol. You're able to procure someone who is this good at what they do. And that's not really about the sex or anything like that there. It's about she's a professional at things outside of bed. As compared to, okay, you might get a two-penny upright, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about what it's like with the companions in Firefly, at least the way Inara portrayed it and the way she handled herself.
Yeah, that's something where, do we have that in Star Trek as well? Or is it more, how do I put it?
Out of sight, out
You
of
have-
mind?
Yeah.
Well, that's where I would probably say, if there is, which I'm willing to bet there is, it's going to be outside of the Federation. So you're looking Orions and other cultures like that that are not under Federation purview.
Because at the same time, and I started thinking about this when it came to Worf and his brother, what rules actually apply in the Federations? What rules actually apply wherever the fuck they are? Because Worf almost killed his brother. And I don't know what parts of the Federation would have actually allowed that, just as, oh, but it's culture, so that's fine. We can't go against the Klingons.
Well, and that is a good one, because there were a lot of people who were willing to let him do it. And then you have when Worf broke his back, he made the request and asked Riker to do it. And Riker looked into it, he gave it some thought. He actually gave the impression that he considered it, but then decided not to do it because it was barbaric.
Yeah, what rules actually apply? Is it something where it's different because it's cultural? And in that case, if someone disrespects or dishonors Klingon, does that mean that the Klingon is within the rights to just stab the fucker to death?
Well, here's the thing: when it comes to the Klingons, they fall under a different realm of that, because the Klingons are, while they are an ally, they are not a member of the Federation. So you have that distinction between acceptance of cultures of member worlds within reason, and you also have the acceptance of cultures of allies that are not subject to Federation law. And that's where Worf's brother comes in, because he's a Klingon warrior, a Klingon citizen. He's not a citizen of the Federation, so technically he does not fall under Federation law. Worf would, if done during while on duty in uniform. Had Worf done it not in uniform, that would have been a different thing. And actually, I believe that's something Worf brought up in that episode where Kern showed up wanting Worf to pretty much fix his mistake or finish the job. But Worf decided not to because of the Federation ideals.
But then at the same time, you remember the episode with Wesley going to Starfleet Academy, I think it was, where he was supposed to be tested. And he met the, whatever the fuck his name was, the guy who didn't really like niceties.
With the webbed hands.
Yeah. Because in that case, you have someone who's come from a culture where, in their interactions with other people, they might literally get into fucking fights because they can't work with other cultures. Which means that the humans in this case have to adapt to that rather than the other way around.
I think the issue with that one was that interaction was actually staged and part of the test to see how they react. Because when you look at that interaction, after Wesley identified that biological signature, his tone changed. And then look at how that Starfleet member responded. The tone changed. So being in Starfleet, he still had to abide by those niceties and everything, but the Proctor used him and his cultural history and his cultural propensity to test the applicants. So you have a give and take there. You have a will be respectful and accepting of you to a point, which is actually the same with the U.S. military. We will be accepting of individuality to a point. You still have to assimilate and become a team player. But once you get through that initial indoctrination phase, a lot of those standards ease up and you start getting treated like a person again. And that's where your individuality can be allowed to resurface, as long as it doesn't become a hindrance to good order and discipline. that's where they draw the line. And with Gene being a Navy man, I suspect that's where he drew that sort of inspiration from.
And I can kind of see that too. But that's just within Starfleet. It's kind of like saying, okay, we have Nog, who, getting into it, or trying to get into it, he went full Ferengi. He's going to buy this letter of recommendation. He's going to give this latinum to Cisco in order to actually get what he wants, because that's the way the Ferengi use it, or Ferengi do. Later on, when we see him at, how was his name? Ben's dad. At his restaurant. When we see him there, he still has some of that Ferengi style, if that makes sense.
But he's starting to assimilate and change.
Yeah, and later on, he's assimilated fully almost into it. But even looking at it like that, that's him. He's gone through Starfleet. If you have someone else as a member of Federation, and if it's someone else like, well, whoever the fuck, say it's Klingons or it's the Ferengi or Andorians or whoever, when you have the people who haven't been indoctrinated in it, the people who have not been run through everything or run through the gauntlet in order to actually understand and accept that there's other people, you're gonna have a lot of issues there. Especially if it's something where, okay, this thing will kill this one species, but not this other one.
Yeah, I guess thinking about it, the Andorians are kind of a bad comparison because they were a founding member of the Federation. So as a culture, as an entire people, they're going to be better equipped to deal with the interactions because of just longevity. That I'm willing to bet after becoming a member of the Federation, there are cultural standards that are expected to be adopted or at least harmonized with, even if it's just from an informational standpoint. That, hey, if any of your people are interested in joining Starfleet, this is what they're going to have to be prepared for.
Yeah, but if you compare it in that case to the ones that we've seen before, like Shran, his crew, the other Andorians that we meet there, compare those to, say, the other species that you see around it today, the way that they were back then. Because all these cultures have their own small, well, stereotypical idiosyncrasies. Idiosyncrasies. That's the word, for fuck's sake. But all of them have these small things. And it's something where I can understand growing up in a species that these are things that they were main survival traits when your species actually came to be. I can fully understand it. But you still have to work around that. Like the Ferengi, they have a certain mind in general for, how do I put it, greed. Sure, not all of them, as can be seen with Rom and as can be seen with Nog, but it's still something where they have a high reward drive, if you can call it that. They have a high drive for, I want this. I want this out of my life. I want these things. Even if they have no fucking idea how business, etc. works, they still have that.
Yeah, but that goes to the question of how much is nature, how much is nurture.
Yeah, I think that they actually have a lot of it in their nature, but it takes different forms. If you look at Quark is amazing at all his fucking schemes. He has everything that he does in order to get money. And as the whole thing goes with having the lobes for it. But at the same time, if you look at Rom, he has no fucking clue how money works. He has no idea how to run a business. But he's amazing with machines. And he still has that drive for, I want to accomplish this. I want this. He just has to go about it in a different way.
And
if you look at some...
And he managed to get Lita.
Yep. But then you can look at something like the Klingons. The Klingons that we see are mainly the warrior caste. But even with the, say, lawyer class, barrister class, if you want to call it that, or the scientist class, they still have their honor. They still have this innate feeling of, I have to do this. This is something that I have to do for, or to rectify it for myself. It's not so much about the thing that they do. It's more about, how can I see this for myself? How can I do this in such a way where I get honor out of it? You have all these small things that, well, the Vulcans, they have their logic. You have, what else do we have? A flux of species.
Oh, the Denoblians.
Yeah, who have all the social interaction. You have all these things where you can see this, you can see it in all these species. It can be really nuanced, as in, they can want the same thing, but go at it in different ways. Quark and Rom. Or you have something where it's very overt, as in the Klingons, where even someone as fucking Duras does it in such a way that they try to justify it for themselves because they want that glory, even if it isn't actually honorable glory.
So I think this, well, no, because most people are going to know the Duras family and those issues, as opposed to that fucking brother-in-law that tried to take down Grilka.
Yeah, nah. No one's going to know about that. But you can see the same thing, and even looking back at Enterprise, because, you know, I do actually like Enterprise, even with the intro. You see that you had a different kind or a different cast of Klingons before that were way more prevalent. Nowadays, it's mostly the warrior cast. They've won out. Everything is about glory this, honor that, etc., etc. But you had essentially the lawyers, the barristers, things like that. You had
the bureaucrats, the people who make things possible so the warriors can do their thing.
Yeah, you have all that too, and they try to get shit on their own, or in their own ways. You just have so much of that shit. As opposed to New Trek, where, well, stuff, yeah.
Just remember, as long as you have a Mikey Spock, you can do everything.
Yeah. It's just kind of sad. Which reminds me. Go on.
I think we'll end this on probably the last bit of positive that I can give the JJ verse. At least they didn't make it all about one character.
Thankfully.
They tried.
So
they.
And when you think about that, one of the hallmarks of Star Trek really has been it not being dependent on a single character. even in DS9, while a lot of it did center around Cisco, there were still episodes where he was an observer to the story that was going on.
Or even barely there.
Discovery, anything that worked, anything that had a favorable outcome, Burnham had some part in it. So it just goes to show that there are some people doing things that they have no idea what's going on. And they don't care to either. I think that's the more infuriating point, is rather than asking questions, rather than actually trying to find out what's going on, it's just, we have our preconceived notion, so we're just going to run with it. And who cares if anyone tries to correct us? We're just going to run with our initial notions because, well, we can't be wrong. I mean, just look. Just look at who we are. We can't be wrong. And for those who are tone deaf, this is what you call sarcasm. Any final thoughts on the show?
Yes, I have one very important thought. I think that Eddington from DS9 would have made a way better Khan.
Oh, yes. Cumberbatch, for all of his actual acting prowess, is all well and good, but the way they had him portray that character, yeah, I think if we had Eddington and the way that he and Cisco end up having that Jean Valjean, Javert dynamic going on, that would have been a better way to portray it. Granted, let's look at who was directing and who was writing Into Darkness. I mean, J.J. Abrams, Kurtzman, and Orsi aren't exactly known for legit character development. Oh god, what'd you find this time?
Eddington.
Oh, you can go ahead and pop it up on screen.
And just get that done.
Oh, I forgot one.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And this might be a slightly older picture.
That was him?
Yes. That's him.
I did not know that he was in that.
I'm going to try to find a clear picture that isn't like stamp sized.
Good luck with that.
Oh yeah. Just give me 2 seconds here. Oh, for fuck's sake. I find a large picture. And it's shit quality.
Oh,
Here we go.
does that really surprise you, though?
No, it doesn't. There we go.
Yeah, that Eddington... He, with the way he played that role, especially after the episodes that we just did this week, when he goes full Maquis, he definitely would have been able to play the role of Khan better than a lot of people would have expected. But the problem that you run into is the main reason why someone like Cumberbatch is going to be even offered a role like that. The name recognition, the money aspect of it. And sometimes that can be good and I can understand it, but there are other times where if you're casting because of the name instead of what the person can actually do for the character, your priorities are off. Because if you're doing something right, if you're doing the movie and the franchise in a way that the actual target audience and the existing fandom actually approve of, you're gonna make the money. But if you're doing something just as a way to guarantee that you're gonna make the money, you might want to rethink your motivations there.
But they had characters there, great characters for what they actually had, and they misused them. Peter Weller can do so much more. He can be so much more neutrally malignant, I guess you could call it. As in, he can be a proper arsehole, but he can be it in such a way where he doesn't come off as being an arsehole. Instead, they just made him look like an arsehole.
Yeah, and that's where not knowing how to write a character with nuance, or let's go even more basic than that. Being able to write a sympathetic bad guy is something that very few have the ability to do. And the bad part is the premise is actually rather simple. And they got close to it with that version of Khan. Have that character's motivation be something that an average person can actually sympathize with. He had the people that he cared about being leveraged against him. That's a great way to piss someone off. And for Weller's character, for Admiral Marcus to think that he can control someone by doing that and having it remain long term, this is why the Admiralty in the Federation gets a bad rap, because holy shit do they have a bunch of fucking idiots.
But many of them have good ideas, understanding actually where the Federation is and where they're coming from, and more importantly, where they're going. And then even knowing that, they still kind of fuck it up because they go to such extremes. Take the fucking invisible facing shield ship. It's a good idea. I mean, it's not really a bad idea. But then you go into the whole, oh, I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to try to finish this, because I know what's best, and everyone else really should know what's better for everyone. But I have to do this on my own, just in order to, well, get this shit running again. Because we're too weak as we are right now. It's just, it's convoluted. I can't understand it, but it's still something where, despite understanding it, it still doesn't really make any sense. They suffer a bit from getting so distanced from everything else that they lose perspective.
As Cisco said, it's easy to be an angel in paradise.
Yep.
But even then, you still had them being less than angelic. What about you, Jay? Any parting words before we go with the interlude?
I'm just glad that I don't have to watch this movie again for some time.
If ever.
Unfortunately, I own it, so it does come up in the conversation every once in a while.
But that doesn't mean you have to watch it.
Yeah.
Although we will be torturing ourselves in a few weeks and going with Beyond simply because that way we can truly be done and over with it.
Bring back Lower Decks.
I have other ideas. They start with T and end with Orville.
That is something that I can agree with. And maybe we'll get into that. And they are about to launch the latest season.
Or we could get into Battlestar Galactica. Or Babylon 5.
I would go Babylon 5 first. Simply because it gets more towards that nostalgia and would actually be worth to see how it is held up. Because I haven't watched any Babylon 5 for probably a good 15, almost 20 years between there. Like, it's been since the time I left for boot camp since I've seen any Babylon 5. So that would be a good one to go into next at some point.
Some point in the near future, or the near decade.
Yeah, we do have a lot of other stuff to go through. But with that said, we are going to take our break, and I have some dinner to get going, and then we will be back on air in about half an hour or so. We'll see you all soon.
Later.